Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're someone who constantly battles against your own brain just to get things done, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're breaking down the absolute science of getting unstuck. We're going to dive really deep into the biological and psychological barriers that literally paralyze us and stop us from taking action. But more importantly, we're going to talk about exactly how to break through them.
Picture this. It's 5 p.m. You have a massive report due tomorrow, and yet, here you are watching an explainer. You might have even considered making dinner first or, just aimlessly scrolling your phone. Let me validate this highly relatable moment of task avoidance for a second. We have all been there. But you can take a deep breath right now because that cycle of guilt and shame, it ends today.
So here's our roadmap. We'll cover 1. Why we always feel stuck. 2. The 6 energy vampires. 3. Your brain on procrastination. 4. The great motivation myth. And 5. How to finally take action. We're moving all the way from cellular biology right up to behavioral coaching. Let's kick things off with section 1, why we always feel stuck. Before we can even think about fixing our physical or mental barriers, we have to address the heavy guilt, shame, and dread inherently tied up with putting our most important goals on hold.
It's time to completely reframe how we view our behavior. We're so quick to call ourselves lazy, right? But laziness is marked by general apathy. It's when you have zero energy and you're perfectly fine just sitting around doing nothing. Procrastination is vastly different. It's characterized by high stress, a deep fear of failure, and active distraction. You aren't avoiding that task because you don't care. You're procrastinating because you actually care too much. You are absolutely terrified your work won't live up to your own high standards.
Which brings us to section 2, the 6 energy vampires. Listen, we absolutely cannot overcome our mental hurdles if our physical engine is completely out of gas. So let's look at what the medical science actually says about our physical energy.
The root of our physical drive is something called ATP. Think of adenosine triphosphate as literal gasoline for the human body, produced by your cell's mitochondria. Now, as we get older, we naturally lose mitochondria and produce less of this vital energy. But age is not the only factor here. Our daily lifestyle habits are either fueling this system or actively destroying it.
There are 6 crucial energy vampires draining your ATP, and each one has a very specific fix. First up, lack of high-quality sleep increases cortisol. The fix? Consistent sleep hygiene. Second is inactivity. Being sedentary actually causes your muscles to shrink and weaken, meaning you physically lose mitochondria. Routine exercise builds that baseline energy right back up. Third is stress, which spikes cortisol and directly reduces ATP. You combat this with mindfulness. Fourth, a poor diet of processed foods spikes inflammation, so choose whole foods. Fifth, poor fluids like sugary drinks just dehydrate you, so stick to water. And finally, social isolation is heavily linked to depression and fatigue, so prioritize real, face-to-face connection.
Building on those dangers of poor fluids and sleep, the number 8 is a critical biological rule for protecting your energy. You absolutely must stop consuming caffeine at least 8 hours before bed. Why? Well, caffeine suppresses a hormone called ADH from your brain's pituitary gland. This forces your kidneys to retain less water, meaning you get dehydrated and you're going to wake up frequently to use the bathroom. That severely interrupts your sleep cycle and completely destroys your energy for the next day. Moving on to section 3, your brain on procrastination. Okay, let's assume you are perfectly hydrated, fully rested, and eating great. Why do you still avoid your work? Let's pivot from physical energy to neurobiology to understand exactly what's happening in your brain when you procrastinate. It all starts with the amygdala. That's a set of neurons that processes emotion and identifies threats. Basically, it's your brain's fire alarm. And the crazy thing here? Procrastination is not a time management issue at all. It's an emotional regulation issue. It is literally a biological fight, flight, or freeze response designed to protect you from tasks that evoke dread, incompetence, or insecurity. Here is the exact chronological timeline of a procrastination panic attack. First, a threat is identified. Say, you remember that big report is due. Second, your amygdala panics and releases adrenaline. Third, this stress-induced panic actually overpowers your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for logical, long-term thinking. And fourth, you choose avoidance. You pick a much less stressful task, like scrolling your phone. And the worst part? This avoidance temporarily lowers your stress, which biologically reinforces that bad habit for the next time.
Section 4, the great motivation myth.
Now that we know our bodies are genuinely just trying to protect us from perceived threats, we have to look at the psychological traps we fall into when we try to force ourselves to work. We have all felt this. At the start of a brand new project, any progress feels like a massive win compared to zero. But then we hit what psychologists call the stuck-in-the-middle effect. The middle feels completely untethered. Why? Because your perspective shifts. Instead of celebrating how far you've come from the starting line, you start fixating on the finish line. You begin comparing your small daily progress against the massive end goal, and profound frustration just sets in.
And this mindset issue scales up to massive societal goals too, whether we're talking about the climate crisis or social inequality. Over half of youth believe humanity is doomed, and even among those who are highly alarmed about climate change, only a third actually take action. The end goal just feels too massive. But history shows us a path forward. During the civil rights movement, shared outrage over systemic racism unified incredibly diverse communities. Change became possible because of individual confidence, the firm belief that personal involvement actually makes a difference, combining into this massive, unstoppable collective momentum.
Which brings us to a quote I absolutely love from Dan Martell. Motion always beats motivation. Every single second you waste waiting for inspiration to strike, you're losing the opportunity to actually build your goal. You have to shatter the illusion that you need to feel ready before you begin. You do not need motivation to start. You just need motion.
Let's wrap it up with Section 5, How to Finally Take Action. It is time to stop drifting on autopilot. Let's look at exactly how to short-circuit that stress response and finally take action today.
Here is your bulletproof, science-backed action plan. Step 1. Cultivate self-compassion. Seriously, being hard on yourself just adds more negative emotion and makes the threat of the task even more intense. Step 2. Break your pursuits into incremental sub-goals. This gives you smaller benchmarks so you don't get paralyzed staring at that massive end goal. Step 3. Remove nearby distractions so impulsively procrastinating isn't so easy. And Step 4. Take any imperfect action. Just make that first messy attempt. Go ahead and write that terrible first sentence.
So, if you take nothing else away from this explainer, remember this. Motivation is not something you are magically born with, and it is definitely not a prerequisite for starting. Motivation is the reward you get from making consistent progress over time. It is a byproduct of discipline. You must make the decision to act first, and then make the action right later. We've uncovered the biological traps, we've identified those sneaky energy vampires, and we've proven that action creates motivation, not the other way around. You now have the understanding to protect your physical energy and the exact mental tools to bypass your brain's false alarms. So I'll leave you with this. You have the energy. You have the tools. So, what choice will you make right now?